The following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
We know what Donald Trump thinks. We know what Roseanne Barr thinks. It's time for us to stop playing around with soft words by saying, oh, they're saying insensitive things. No, it's racist.
When you have a president that did everything he could to do dog whistling around this issue of race, people like Roseanne feel they're empowered. Well, they got the memo today, you're not empowered. People are not going to take it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You are listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, 855-40-LAURA. Well, Roseanne, that was quick. In and out. I mean, number one show on television, gone. She sends this tweet that certainly sounded racist. She claims she didn't know Valerie Jarrett was white. What did she say, Raymond? Raymond Arroyo is with us. She said
a tweet this morning. In fact, she did it in the middle of the night. She claims
she should stop tweeting in the middle of the night.
Well, that's exactly right. But she claims she was on Ambien and that she thought Valerie Jarrett was a Persian Jew and didn't realize she was African American. She apologized to the staff and crew, but was a little cutting toward Disney and ABC.
Well, she feels bad, of course, because all the staff, all the technical people, to get a job, and Raymond knows a lot about the entertainment industry, to get a job on a hit show could be your ticket, right? It could really be your ticket. And a lot of the folks behind the scenes, the cameramen and the grips, and I mean, these people don't make a lot of money, and they're out of work, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. But boy, they move fast against Roseanne. And look, she said, "Don't defend me." My tweet was indefensible. Don't defend me. She said that as well.
She did.
We raised the issue last night of other people who happen to be of a more liberal persuasion on other non-racial controversies. When you ridicule Christians, the past comments that Joy Reid made about homosexuals and so forth, that they are able to be redeemed, but as Howie Kurtz said, the third rail is race. If you get sideways on that issue or perceived to be racist, I don't know Roseanne. I thought it was great that we had a show that at least treated, the half of America who supported Trump fairly. I thought that was kind of a nice thing. I think I saw 2 minutes of the show, and that's only on YouTube. But I thought it was good to have a show like that. And I think a lot of people are left scratching their heads today. They're like, well, who is so stupid as to send out a tweet like that? Is she really racist? Certainly sounds like it. She claims, I guess she is not. She says her tweet's indefensible, but then she does kind of hit Disney for axing the show. Well, Disney knew what they were getting with Roseanne, didn't they? I mean, Ben Sherwood even said no one can control Roseanne. He's the president of ABC Entertainment. ABC, not ABC Entertainment. President of the whole network. We knew basically saying we knew what we were getting. And it also brings to mind, the entertainment industry is rife with wackadoodles. Okay, wackadoodle people is my old friend in Glastonbury would say. She's a wackadoodle, and she's a comedian. Cosby is a comedian. You got all sorts of comedians like that woman Michelle Wolf. I cannot believe she has a Netflix show, Raymond. I watched that preview or the clips from her show on Netflix. Oh my God, talk about an offensive personality. Well, she gets away with saying things because she's trashing Sarah Huckabee. And it was at a comedy dinner. So, that she gets away with that.
Look, here's the bottom line. let's put this in a bigger context. All of these people are out of their minds, and Roseanne Barr particularly. Remember, this is a woman who was on mind-altering drugs for a long time. You'll remember when her show was still on the air, she had charged her father with sexually abusing her, later to recant that and say that a therapist led her down that path. I mean, there's a long history of
she's
bizarre
had a lot of
commentary from
issues.
Roseanne. Yeah, so let's say that. The only reason people gravitated to the show again was because it reflected where working class America is. They liked that part of it. Roseanne Barr as a person is something separate. But here she got carried away. She wrote a racially tinged to racist tweet, and she's suffering for it. Is it fair? Is this the same ruler used for everybody else? Joy Behar celebrating when Trump Tower was on fire, hoping the president was inside? Was that acceptable? Is that good speech? I guess it is at ABC.
Well,
but this isn't.
Snoop Dogg, that shoot the president rap about killing Trump in the video, and
right.
Madonna, she's going to blow up the White House. I mean, certain speech is forgivable or even acceptable, and other speeches immediately you're irredeemable. Can never come back from what you said. It can never be read. Whatever happened to Michael Richards? Remember from Seinfeld? He said the N-word. Mm-hmm. You kind of never heard from him again, right?
No, he hasn't shown up since that Curb Your Enthusiasm reunion.
Oh, right. Right. Well, he was... Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really gotten a break.
And look, Roseanne is being... The earth is being scorched all around Roseanne. Her show got pulled. Viacom... country music
Why
television.
do you say Viacom? It's Viacom, you go.
No, Viacom. Let's call the whole thing off. But Viacom, country music television, Paramount Network, and ABC all pulled reruns and current editions of her show, and she's being disinvited from every comedy gig that she had booked for the rest of the year.
So there's no possibility ever of being redeemed.
Well, you see, this is where I come down. People say stupid things, Laura. Joy Behar said stupid things. People have said stupid things about you.
But I didn't want her off the air. Well, I didn't want her off the air. I don't like that. I don't like that targeting of people for comments. I really don't. I think, look, people can make their own decisions. Show rises or falls. I don't. If you're criminally inclined, and obviously someone like a Weinstein, that's a different situation. But I don't know. I always tend to believe that there should be redemption. Maybe it's going back to my church days. But I don't know. It feels like it feels wrong to say that no one in this situation can ever be redeemed ever. I don't know. What does everybody think about this? A lot of people think this is just political. I think if she were a liberal and said this, she probably wouldn't have survived either, though. Do you think, Raymond? I mean, she wouldn't have survived.
No. I think it was over the line.
It was way over the line.
And again, I can kind of buy her explanation, and I'll read you the tweet. Mm-hmm. Throughout the day, she was saying yesterday, Islam is all people. That's not racist. Everybody, that
was her first reaction, right after she said the Ambien, or no, before she said the Ambien thing.
Way before the Ambien. So what that points to is her latest explanation, which is she thought she was Jewish and a Persian.
Now, what did I said from the beginning? I bet Roseanne didn't realize that she was black. I said that immediately. I said, I bet that's what happened. And I don't know why that image came to mind. Was she watching an old show? Who knows what she was doing? I mean, her mind is wacky. Woman's wacky at the very least. So does she have talent? I guess. I mean, is she wacky? Yes. Is she racist? I don't. It certainly Laura, sounds racist, but is she a racist? Does she have a history of being a racist? I don't know.
She is a racist. She has a history of being someone who is very inflammatory.
Yeah.
And there was a time when the culture and comedy was more forgiving of those who would say inflammatory, outrageous things.
Right.
That culture has shifted and changed. It's totally gone. Don Rickles would never be who he was today.
Never make
There's no way he could do that routine. They would call him a racist in the first 5 minutes of the act.
Well, she's the same person who said, these Wall Street bankers should be executed via guillotine, and she kind of danced along the edges of that 9/11 trutherism, and then she.
And I look, Charlie Sheen has now moved in. He's tweeted, "Adios, Roseanne. Good riddance. Hashtag not winning. The runway is now clear for our reboot." And he has a screenshot of the 2.5 Men reboot. He wants to bring that back in her time slot. So from one wackadoodle to another. Great.
Oh, no. He was on the cover of Of the Eye Zing, Charlie Sheen.
Oh, my God.
Remember? His hand was coming out of
his tattoo sleeve.
Oh, no, his tattoo sleeve, right. He is another whack job. Then you got
That's
Kim.
What I'm saying. These actors, just because you
they're
love
just
them
actors.
in a role, they're out of their minds sometimes, and they are not who you think they are. But now, what you're seeing here is the reality of the actor clashing with your image of, in this case, Roseanne Connor, the woman she plays on TV. And it is a pity that voice is now stifled. Yeah. But that's what dumb comments made in the middle of the night by an actor who can't control themselves. That's where you end up.
By the way, we're gonna talk about this. Do you think there was any political motivation behind her being canned so quickly by so many, not just ABC, or do you think she just crossed the line and it's obviously racist, and so she was going to go, whether she was liberal or conservative, she's not going to stay on television? I mean, can you imagine the protests? Black Lives Matter. They would have gone. And they should have lost every advertiser. So that's what would have happened. They wouldn't have been able to keep it on the air. Wouldn't have made any money. They would have taken.
What she said in her tweet. She was informed and told there was a threatened boycott.
Oh yeah.
Of her show and ABC, and she knew then it was over.
And what did I tell you about Trey Gowdy? How many times did I say someone who doesn't come on our show or come on our TV show doesn't like Trump? What did I say? What did I say about this, Trey Gowdy? How many times have I said, why doesn't Trey Gowdy come on the show? Trey Gowdy's totally throwing Trump under the bus. And multiple comments. We're going to talk about that. Dershowitz is actually hitting him right now on Fox because Trey Gowdy's out there. I've never met or spoken to the president. He said that this morning. I've never met or spoken to the president. Well, I'm sure Trump's not losing sleep over that.
I think the FBI, if they were at the table this morning, they would tell you Russia was the target and Russia's intentions toward our country were the target. Of course they're going to say that. The fact that two people who were loosely connected with the Trump campaign may have been involved doesn't diminish the fact that Russia was the target and not the campaign.
So you looked at this and you said what the FBI was doing was kosher. Why does the president keep saying what he's saying when he knows better?
I don't know. I've never met or talked to the president. I cannot tell you.
You've never met or talked to President Trump?
I have not.
What does that tell you? I don't think he voted for Trump. Do you, Raymond? If someone made you bet right now, yes or no, did he vote for Trump? What would you say? I bet he didn't vote for Trump. He didn't vote for Trump. No way. Telling you. Here are the people who wouldn't come on radio, and they're all gone. Eric Cantor, John Boehner, he came on like twice. Jeb Bush, John Kasich. What's the other list? What are the other people on the list I'm missing? Rubio.
Well, Rubio's been on.
Well, he's been on recently because now he's become like Trump. Okay, now he's more like Trump, except he's not great on the Russia spy question either. And they're hanging this. We have so much to get to because the media are now doing a couple things. Back to Roseanne, and then we'll talk about the spy versus informant issue. The media are now trying to tag Trump with Roseanne, which is so predictable. Okay. From Al Sharpton, who has no standing to talk about racism, no standing, given his offensive past and his false allegations tying himself, whether it was to the Duke rape case or Tawana Brawley or any of his past hateful associations. So Farrakhan, all these people, anti-Semitic, all things that they're all tied to. So they're trying to tag Trump with Roseanne to Trump. They're all interchangeable. That's how the media is dealing. They're all interchangeable. Trump allowed for this tone to be adopted in the United States. So that's happening. On the other issue, now a few Republicans and all the Democrats, seeing that this Russia collusion thing went down the tubes, are now shifting the narrative once again to say, oh, well, clearly this is an informant trying to help America by focusing on whether Russia was involved, wasn't targeting Trump. No. Of course, that is ridiculous. They would, if they weren't targeting Trump, what they would have done is they would have given the Trump campaign a defensive briefing about all of this. They didn't for a reason. Okay, and the second point here is that it doesn't matter what you call it. If there is a double standard here, which there is, because they would have screamed bloody murder if this had happened to Hillary Clinton's campaign. If there's a double standard, it by its very definition is political here, because we're dealing with a political campaign season. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get to more of this. Trey Gowdy throwing Trump under the bus. Tagging Trump with the Roseanne comments. All your reaction. 855-40-LAURA. If you're one of the millions of Americans who suffer from muscle cramps in your legs or your feet, relief is finally in sight. TheraWorks Relief is a topical foam that's clinically proven to relieve muscle cramps fast. And with daily use, TheraWorks Relief can prevent muscle cramps before they even start. I recommend TheraWorks Relief to my family and friends, and the results speak for themselves. Now the word breakthrough gets tossed around easily these days, but TheraWorks Relief is the real deal. This is a life-changing product that, best of all, you don't even need a prescription for. TheraWorks Relief is my choice for preventing and relieving muscle cramps. Make it yours, too. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens pharmacies, or at TheraWorksRelief.com. Talk to your pharmacist about TheraWorks Relief and experience relief from muscle cramps for yourself. That's TheraWorks Relief for your muscle cramps.
I said it from the get-go. ABC was going to have a lot of problems with her because I knew she was thinking these things and was going to say this. Listen, Trump started his whole political campaign by denigrating Barack Obama and saying he wasn't born in America, and that was a racist, not a dog whistle, a dog bullhorn, you know. And so he stirred up that racist base inside, and it cannot stand in America today.
You are a meathead. A meathead, dead from the neck up.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Kevin in Florida, line 2. Kevin, that was Rob Reiner, obviously. Kevin.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that none of this really matters because most people are so ignorant to the fact that as long as you're not conservative and you're not pro-Donald Trump, that you can really say and get away with anything. I mean, ABC could care less with the fact of Roseanne's ratings, and look what they did to Tim Allen, and that show was leaps and bounds more popular than Roseanne. I just think it's smart that Fox is going to pick it up. That's going to be another coup in their belt, kind of like last time.
I don't know if they're. I don't think that's true that Fox is going to pick it up. I haven't heard that.
He was talking about the Tim Allen show. That
the Fox show.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't think anyone's going to pick up the Roseanne show anytime soon. I don't think that's going to happen. Well, I think a lot of people feel like you can't say or do anything. Now people are being drummed out of businesses for inappropriate hugs. He hugged me inappropriately 10 years ago. What? What is that? Hugged you inappropriately? Then speak up. No one's going to want to. We're going to want to walk around bubble wrap. Nobody's going to want to talk to each other, compliment one another, say anything. You can't say anything. But Roseanne made a big mistake. Big mistake. And she's a wackadoodle. And, you know, she has to deal with it herself at this point. We'll continue to take your calls. A lot more coming up.
We have such a bad deal with Mexico. We have such a bad deal with Canada. We lose with Mexico over $100 billion a year with this crazy NAFTA deal. Think of it. It's impossible. We lose $100 billion a year, and that doesn't include the billions of dollars of drugs that flow into our country. That's not included.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, the NAFTA deal is Boy, the Trump team has been working hard to try to renegotiate NAFTA. Don't know if it's going to be possible. And interestingly, Canada has been the great stumbling block, I think more so than Mexico, in trying to get this renegotiation done. It's not easy on the Mexican side either. And a presidential election and the offing there. But we had Justin Trudeau yesterday essentially saying that, he's not going to sign a bad deal. He'd rather have no deal. Okay, well, we'll see how that works out for Canada.
In any trade deal, there are always ways to look for compromises, ways to understand that we can get to a win-win-win. But I've also said very clearly, and Canadians know this of me, that I will stand up for Canadian interests. I will only sign a deal that is good for Canada. And no NAFTA is better than a bad deal. And we've made that very clear with the president.
Well, that's what we think. I guess that's what President Trump has said. It's been bad for the United States. Joining us now, Dr. Peter Navarro, Assistant to the President, Director of Trade and Industrial Policy, Director of the White House National Trade Council, author of the book Death by China. Peter, it's good to see you. How are you?
Hey, Laura, that was a telling soundbite. No deal is better than a bad NAFTA. Well, that's the president's position.
Where are we now on the NAFTA renegotiation? Everyone's stuck on the Russia probe and Roseanne and all these other stories. Meanwhile, we have these incredibly important issues that we're trying to deal with both China and Mexico, Canada. Let's just focus on NAFTA if we could. Where do things stand?
I'm very careful about staying in my lane, and Ambassador Robert Lighthizer has a team of over 100 people that are working on this negotiation, and American people and the president are very good hands with the ambassador. So I stay out of that one. My focus is primarily now on addressing the China issue, and yesterday's statement was a really historic moment for this presidency in this country because it basically set down a path to defend the crown jewels of our technology and intellectual property. And it was a good day for America yesterday.
The ZTE deal was a big one for China. They were very upset that they would not be able to work with the United States. There were concerns on national security front. Marco Rubio, Chuck Schumer, a wide variety of people from across the political spectrum were very upset. I wasn't thrilled either with the White House's decision on that. Is that going to be changed? Is it final? What's the latest there?
I have an even narrower lane on that one, Laura, to be honest. As a White House official, I can't comment on the ZTE issue because it's both a law enforcement and national security issue being handled by Justice, Commerce, and a district judge. So if you would forgive me,
okay.
We are under orders.
All right, it's frustrating when we can't. Yeah, I know. I'm sure you have things to say about it. You can't say it, but I get it. You're not just Peter Navarro, the author professor anymore. You're Peter Navarro who works at the White House. All right, so let's focus on China
for the president.
Yeah, so let's focus on China. Are you able to talk about China? Yes.
I am able to talk all about China.
Okay, except for ZTE, which is the big issue. Okay,
correct.
Now, okay, so on the China front, on the $50 billion worth of goods are receiving tariffs. Briefly go through the types of goods and the types of products that are going to be hit with a 25% tariff.
Sure, and let's go through the logic of it. What China does, as the USTR report has documented, is they steal our stuff. They force the transfer of our technology from American companies operating on Chinese soil. They evade our export controls to get militarily sensitive products. And they come over here with their state-backed funds and their state-owned enterprises, and they're buying basically the creme de la creme of places like Silicon Valley, in artificial intelligence, robotics. These are the China 2025 industries. They're the industries of the future. That's the target of the tariffs. Now, the function of the tariffs has a very special function within the context of this 301. We know that China, Laura, has a predatory model where the Chinese government will specifically target an industry, let's say solar, and they'll throw a bunch of subsidies at it, overcapacity. And in the case of solar, we used to have 32 solar companies. We're down to 2, and they took over that industry. They're going to try to do that with robotics, with artificial intelligence, with blockchain technology. We are not going to let them. The president is not going to let them do that. And at the front lines of that are the tariffs that will defend our companies in things like the China 2025 industries, the high-tech industries, from Chinese predation. And then the investment restrictions work hand in glove with that because they prevent China from coming in and buying those companies which are researching, developing, and producing these crown jewels. So it's a great plan that the president has set forth, and that's the logic of it. So these products you asked, it's 10% of the total product line of the $505 billion that they sell us every year, and it's targeted like a laser beam on lasers and other high technology.
$50 billion was annoying to Wall Street. They didn't like that. I think it could have been on $200 billion worth of products sold to the United States. I actually think it was pretty mild as tariffs go, but compared to the Bush administration, anything is good here.
Well, remember, there's two moving targets we have with China. One is defending our technology
IP.
Companies. Mm-hmm. So in our IP, and technology is a much broader category than IP. So it's important to say both of those words. Mm-hmm. But we also have this trade imbalance of $370 billion trade deficit in goods every year, which is draining us dry. For every $1 billion that we have a deficit with China, that's about 6,000 jobs in manufacturing we fail to create. And so if you scale that up over the $370 billion, it's millions of jobs. So when you talk about tariffs beyond the $50 billion, that would be more applicable to dealing with our trade imbalance. But for this purpose, Laura, the $50 billion is again like a laser beam on high tech to defend ourselves. It's good policy.
The Bloomberg has a headline out. I guess you were on NPR's radio show, and it said Navarro rebukes Mnuchin for declaring trade truce as China talks near. You were asked about his comments and of course the other White House official on this, his comments that the U.S. trade war with China was on hold, and you said that was an unfortunate soundbite, acknowledging there is a dispute that needs to be resolved. Can you expand on those comments?
Sure. I'm puzzled by this false divisiveness they're trying to portray. Basically, what I said was two things. One is that we are in a trade dispute with China, and that the president has said many times that we lost the trade war long ago thanks to Obama, Bush, and Clinton, who gave us NAFTA and China's entry into the World Trade Organization. End of story. So I think you're trying to gin up a false conflict here, and that's unfortunate, and it distracts from the issue of what this is about. This is a trade dispute. I mean, I don't know if you back in the 80s when Japan was a strong ally of ours, we had trade disputes with them all the time. Reagan slapped large tariffs on semiconductors and steel and other things. So I'm not sure why I am sure why Bloomberg does that. It's like the fake news machine, but there it is.
So Wilbur Ross is going this week, I guess this week to Beijing, this weekend, to try to resolve this dispute. And the New York Times says U.S. resumes trade dispute against China. Like we're the ones to blame here. I love the New York Times title. I mean, of course that's of course that's how they're going to say it. Now, why aren't you going with Ross, since you're one of the people at the White House who knows probably more? You probably know more about this over the years since you've written about it, documented it. Why aren't you going on this trip? Is it China is putting up a flag? They don't want Navarro to come, or what?
No, none of that's going on. I mean, we went as a team a couple of weeks ago to Beijing, and there was Larry Kudlow, myself, Steve Mnuchin, Robert Lighthizer, Wilbur Ross. We were joined at the negotiating table by Ambassador Branstad in China, and then that was the team. So in this case, Secretary Ross is simply going over there with a delegation to explore China buying additional products from us, and that's the narrow mission that he's on.
So you're all you're all in agreement about how to deal with China going forward. You, Mnuchin, Wilbur, and Lighthizer. I mean, Lighthizer has a different role, but are you all in agreement? I mean, you're more of a nationalist on trade, like I am, and Trump, I would imagine, and those guys are more of the globalist bent. Not that they're not really smart. I think they're super smart, but there is disagreement in the White House, and I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think that it's important to point out that the statement that came out yesterday was endorsed by the whole team, and that our approach to China has been endorsed by the interagency. You know as well as I do, Laura, that this president, one of the great strengths of this president is he likes differing views and analysis, and he gets that within this White House, and it's healthy. What isn't healthy is when that leaks out and creates false divisions within the team. But look, having competing viewpoints is the way this president thrives, and more power to him.
Who's leaking?
Who knows? If we knew who it was, it would stop. But it's been unfortunate. It's just these leaks, the shivving, as Kellyanne Conway explains. I had to go through about 10 days of that over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's not a pleasant experience.
No.
And the false accusations come so fast that you can't. It's like, when did you stop beating your wife, kind of thing,
right.
And you just don't get into it. So what we do here, and what I've done since I've gotten here, is just get it done for the president as a foot soldier. The task and mission.
Right. You know what? I love this. I love how the media, who have missed the ball on trade for decades, they have missed the story, missed the narrative. Finally, now people are coming along to seeing, maybe we won't be such a free country if China eclipses our economy and has a bigger military than ours and has bought all of our technology companies. Maybe that'll be a problem for freedom. Now people are kind of getting that. Even Tom Friedman yesterday on Morning Joe, Peter made a comment about, well, China's been unfair in their trade, which I almost fell over to hear him actually say that. So Trump has already moved the needle on that, and yet they still call you and others, and myself and others, the hardliners on trade. You know what I say? You, Peter Navarro, are a pragmatist on trade, because you're seeing what the future is going to look like if China dominates the global economic scene. And they have their 2025 initiative, hundreds of billions of dollars of subsidies pouring into machine learning and space technology and 3D printing, all this stuff that is going to dominate, robotics, all of it. And you're actually gaming this out. Everyone else is like, what's Wall Street going to say? What's Wall Street going to do? What about the soybeans? What about the sour gum? I'm like, come on. Give me a break. Anyway, you can close it out. That's just my rant on this.
I'm honored by that, Laura. And I wrote the first book, The Coming China Wars, in 2006, and everybody says it's hyperbole and ran around with their head on fire. But every word of that has come true. And if anything, we're at a point now. I wrote Death by China in 2011, laying this out even more. Crouching Tiger in 2016 about the rise of the military. And it's like, what I don't understand is, like, I don't know how people haven't seen this.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I'm the smartest guy on the planet. It's like, this is obvious. It's like the emperor's got no clothes here. Literally, that's a good pun since it's China. But anyway, the good news is that President Donald J. Trump has been watching this chessboard for decades. He understands the problems. He's moving forward.
Yeah, and he's going to get it done.
Vision, and we'll get it done.
He's got to get it done. This is one of his most important issues. Can't be perceived to give ground on this. Got to be strong and state. And I think the nationalists won this round. I think the New York Times got that right. Peter Navarro, thank you for what you're doing for our manufacturing base, our industrial base, and pragmatism in economics. We really appreciate it. Assistant to the President, Director of Trade and Industrial Policy from the White House, Peter Navarro. Stay with us. All right, back on the Laura Ingraham Show. Now the media are really upset that Donald Trump hasn't mentioned Roseanne. Trying to renegotiate NAFTA, trying to get our situation vis-a-vis China straight, worrying about the North Korea summit, managing to do what he can in the U.S. economy, the immigration fight that's about to begin, but he should be focused on Roseanne. These people are shameless, honestly. We're going to talk about that. Trump and Roseanne. This is where they are. And this is all because the Russia collusion thing has flopped. They have to change the narrative. Stay with us.
The hit true crime series, Murder Made Me Famous, is now on Podcast One, showcasing some of the most notorious crimes imaginable, including Scott Peterson, Jodi Arias, Ted Bundy, and more. See how murder made them famous. New episodes every Tuesday on PodcastOne.com, the Podcast One app, and Apple Podcasts. And check out the new season of Murder Made Me Famous every Saturday on the Reels channel.
Your Healthy Radio Addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Will you come with me? Won't you come with me? Oh, oh, what I want to know. Will you come with me?
This hallmark of his rhetoric since he began running for president is us against them. It's playing these culture war cards with an idea to divide. It's appealing to white identity politics. You have him celebrating Roseanne Barr, and Roseanne Barr celebrating the president. But when this happens, he was MIA. Why? Well, it may stem from a basic discomfort that we saw after Charlottesville, where he's afraid that condemning racism might alienate a part of his base, whether that's at Roseanne Barr or something larger.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Who's that? Who is that? Oh, John Avalon. He doesn't have a very distinguished voice. I mean, he sounds like a lot of other people. I can usually recognize voices, but his kind of goes into the background. So it's just an economic decision for ABC to cancel Roseanne. The left is thrilled with this outcome, obviously. Roseanne, as a show, gave voice to just regular people who aren't buying into the same old liberal claptrap. Roseanne, as a person, has always been a wackadoodle. So she's always been, not operating with both oars in the water. ABC knew this when they decided to do the reboot. See, Raymond Arroyo's with us. I'm someone who never saw the original Roseanne. I don't think I saw that show one time. It wasn't my cup of tea.
I didn't watch it either.
It wasn't my thing. I found it it seemed like kind of a low rent. I don't know. People love that show, but it wasn't my thing.
Well, it was funny. And
I guess.
It generated a lot of controversy in its day. You remember Roseanne did the girl-on-girl kiss. And
Ew.
I mean, there was a lot of hot buttons that show pushed. And I think it was cast post-Trump as a political statement and somehow a right-wing show. It was never a right-wing show. She was the character on the show voted for Trump. That was the beginning and the end of whatever political opinion the show had. But the rest of the show was very progressive and like a lot of shows on television, to be frank.
Well, now it's Donald Trump needs to come out and condemn Roseanne. This is what they're saying. Donald Trump must come out and condemn Roseanne Barr. Otherwise, he's just as racist as she. Well, they all think he's racist anyway.
And I think people get depressed when they see a Roseanne Barr and you see the president not saying anything. But let's not forget, the good news is you got good people out there, whether it's the people who came to her defense or Valerie Jarrett herself, who's actually worthy of that kind of defense. So, and we need red state voices on the air with the same kind of class and dignity that you see from a Valerie Jarrett, not a Roseanne Barr.
So again, during the Trump speech last night, the liberal commentators on the other cable networks kept saying, well, we'll check in on the speech if we get word that he's going to mention Roseanne, or if he's mentioning Roseanne. But he never did mention Roseanne. He was at a campaign rally for Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, who's behind in the polls, by the way, which is disturbing. Should Trump respond to this, or is this just ridiculous? I mean, this is a reason that it's always going to be precarious to embrace someone in the entertainment industry. It's always going to be a tightrope that you're on because I mean, they tend to be a little wild. And who knows what Roseanne was doing, thinking. I can't get into her head. But the comments were reprehensible. She's right, and indefensible. But now she never can be redeemed, apparently. So there's no coming back from it. You can threaten to blow the president up. You can, like Keith Olbermann, ridicule women's looks who are conservative and say all these things. But you can come back from that. You can say the president's a Nazi. But that's, the liberals have a much wider berth in what they can say and do. Now, Bill Maher lost his ABC show after that, saying the 9/11 hijackers were courageous or something like that. He meant that they were willing to give their lives for their beliefs. He wasn't, I believe, saying that you should emulate them. He was making kind of a point, which is probably too complicated for television, but they drove him off that show, and then he was picked up by HBO. Roseanne will not be picked up by HBO. That's not going to happen. I don't think she'll be picked up by anyone. I don't. Do you think that's right, Raymond? Do you think anyone would pick up the show? It was the number one show in television?
Well, I think they're going to let a little time go by and then see. But look, I've been reading a lot of articles by people who were involved in this Roseanne reboot who were on the original show. And many of them say they had hoped her unpredictable, and I'm quoting, unpredictable, unstable behavior of the early years were behind them. Okay, that was her EP. So it's not as if they thought she was some model citizen. Mm-hmm. They knew she was unpredictable and crazy. She's nuts around the edges. And she says crazy things, and she enmeshes herself in conspiracy theories, and she flouts all the conventions, and she's crass. So they knew all of that. And in these times, that behavior is less accepted than it might have been 20 years ago. That's what I think happened. The times changed on Roseanne Barr. And maybe this reboot didn't need to happen. As you know, I'm not a big fan of reboots. I'm just not. No. I think they have their time and their era, and then they move on. It would be like writing Gone with the Wind today. No. I doubt if Scarlett O'Hara and Tara would play in 2018 Atlanta.
No. Well, Mark Morial of the National Urban League was on discussing this and what ABC's responsibility is.
I think what this is it's a moment that says that you've got to lean in to this opportunity and lean in to the need that you have to fill the moral void that's been left by the deficiencies in the White House. The White House has surrendered this moral platform that the presidency has always represented. So it's up to civic leaders like us. It's up to business leaders. It's up to religious leaders and others to fill the void and say, this is what America stands for. ABC is coming down on the side of this.
So ABC and all companies should join the political resistance. This is just what America doesn't want.
Now, first of all, don't talk to us about how ABC is filling a moral void. So now these guys are the big moralizers.
Right.
Wait a second. Family Hour television, kids are jumping into bed with other, this is, give me a break about the moralizing. About now culture matters to these guys. Now language matters. Okay, then let's really take it to its fullest extent here. Language does matter. I agree. Of course it does. But don't expect the rest of us to praise you for being up on your moral high horse here as defenders of the smut entertainment industry that pumps out more filth to our children and to our teens, including in the gaming industry and the video gaming industry and all this. Oh, come on. Give me a break. No one buys that. I think that's all ridiculous. And Alveda King was on with me on the Ingraham angle last night, the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. And I pressed her because people were, even last night, saying this is the world that Trump created, a world in which someone like Roseanne feels like she can say this and get away with it.
Well, I believe Roseanne, perhaps, as I say, teachable moment, just thought she could say or do whatever she thought at any time.
But did Donald Trump create the atmosphere, Alvita? That's what the left is saying.
No, he did not. No, he did not. I voted for Donald Trump. I'm not a racist. There are many of us who support the president today, and we're not racist. So to tie this one particular act from one particular person and say that it's Donald Trump's fault, that's just not true.
Well, I think that really sums it up well. Dean in Alabama on line 4. We'll get to him in just a moment. Debbie, Kentucky on line 1. Debbie.
Hi, Laura. Good day. I find it interesting that, of course, when Jeremiah Wright was found to be Obama's pastor for years and had said all kinds of outrageous comments about America, and find out that President Obama had friendships with Bill Ayers, had been in contact with Farrakhan. Once that came to light, none of that had anything to do with Obama. But today, every single wacko that has anything to say that's unkind or cruel or racist or what have you, that's all laid at the feet of President Trump.
Well, that's interesting because, of course, Obama actually sat in the church of Reverend Wright. He was his pastor. You're right about that. It's not like Trump is hanging out with Roseanne. That's like over at her house getting dinner. He did call her, I guess, right, Raymond? He did call her after the show did well.
He called her after the show and congratulated her on the success of the first.
I don't even think he should have called her. Why did he call her? I don't think he should have called her.
Well, he called her because she took a lot of beatings over, in public over her support of him.
It's risky, though, knowing her past.
And for having a character support him.
Yeah, but knowing her past, it's risky. It's probably better for her for him not to call either. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You wade into these. That's why this Kim Kardashian's going to the White House today for this prison reform summit. Obviously, she's married to Kanye West, rapper. They're one of the it couples of the entertainment industry. Kardashians, in my mind, represent a lot of what is just wrong about television and so forth. But look, they love it. I mean, this is what they say. We love each other. We support each other. We close with their mother, close with their sisters. I mean, look, I'm going to quote Pope Francis, Raymond. Who am I to judge? Let me just say it's just not my cup of tea, the Kardashian culture. That's not my cup of tea. She is going to be at the White House for this prison reform meeting. I guess Kanye West and she are interested in prison reform. Now, I don't know what expertise Kim Kardashian has to lend to this effort. Certainly Obama worked with all sorts of celebrities for a variety of reasons on a variety of things, from Michelle's anti-obesity initiative to a lot of other things that he worked on. But it's always a little risky, I think. Don't you, Raymond, think it's risky to bring the celeb set into the White House? I think. Well,
look, there was a time President Obama was blessed with never being saddled with the dark side of the celebrities he brought in. So he washed and basked in their glamour, but then never had to take any heat should they say something or do something out of the ordinary. With Trump, it's just the inverse. He has very few celebrities who will come near him, and when they do, he's saddled and blamed, as the Roseanne situation demonstrates. He's blamed for any misdeeds. So, look, celebrities, people, these are like our saints, okay? People love looking at celebrities. They follow them. They worry about who they're dating and what they're wearing. Trump is using that to draw attention, or Ivanka is, to draw attention to this prison reform agenda, which frankly I don't think many Trump supporters have any desire to see go forward and have very little interest in. Prison reform is not exactly why they voted for Donald Trump. So you kind of need a celebrity to draw attention to this stuff, and that's what they're doing. But is this a good thing long-term politically? Probably not, given the trajectory of the Jenner-Kardashian-West, behavior patterns.
Alice Johnson is a 62-year-old great-grandmother serving a life sentence without parole for a first-time drug offense. And Kim Kardashian hopes to make a legal argument to the president for why he should pardon her. More than 21 years after Johnson went to prison, Kardashian came across her story on Twitter earlier this year and reached out to Ivanka, who connected her to Kushner, according to the
Ruth Bader
source.
Ginsburg, move over.
In an interview earlier this month, Kardashian said that if given the opportunity, she would explain to Trump that just like everybody else, we make choices in our lives, and that those choices, sometimes go the wrong way, and she would like to see this woman, I guess, we're not proud of all of our decisions. We don't think through all the way, and she hopes that the president will exercise mercy and clemency, but we're not sure where the president's going to go on this. I mean, didn't we have Sly Stallone just get he just got some,
Sly Stallone just got a posthumous pardon for a boxer, long dead.
Johnson?
African-American boxer.
Yeah, Jack Johnson.
But why are these men and why are these stars suddenly the solicitors and representatives of, the guilty? How does that happen?
This
is a very strange trajectory here.
I'm not sure about where this is all going, but it seems to me we'd be ridiculing the Obamas if they were doing this.
Oh, no, no.
We would be
imagine if they had Jennifer Lopez coming in.
We'd be filleting the
JC.
Obamas. We just have to be honest about this. We'd be filleting the Obamas.
That's right.
But
you would be.
But Kushner, because his dad went to the prison. Kushner's big on the prison reform. I think there's some things we could do to make the prison system better, no doubt about it. I mean, I you know me about prosecutors. I'm not a big fan of how the prosecutors get their convictions in some of these cases. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Roseanne, double standard, or she got what she deserved? Don't go away.
I remember having a conversation with some ABC executives that they were working very hard to contain her because they realized they had a problem, but they wanted the show to be representative of different sides of the country. And it was a great move yesterday. The thing that sort of is the background of all of this is that the president can be racist and nothing happens to him.
Deep Thoughts with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
What I think we're dealing with is those that are still trying to turn us back into a day that is considered normal. And I think we can't get away from the fact if it starts raining, you look for clouds.
All right. Raymond, if it starts raining, look for clouds.
I am.
If it starts raining, I just grab an umbrella.
If it starts raining, I look for the door to go inside.
What is he talking about? Oh, it's all Trump's fault. This is all
He's
Trump's fault.
Talking about racism.
It's all Trump's fault.
It's not just a raindrop, you see. It's an epidemic of raindrops.
No, but how about the fact that then we had Andrea Mitchell looking at Joy Reid yesterday on her show that was promoting the big race town hall last night, which was great timing for their show. But Andrea Mitchell looks at Joy Reid from MSNBC with all the controversy about her, supposedly anti-homosexual past, and said this.
What do you have to do on social media to get fired from a top-rated show on an American broadcast network?
Well, she didn't say cable network. See, she could have said from a cable network. She didn't say that. Herself. No. This is... Well, Donald Trump is out there tweeting. We need Raymond. Raymond will be doing someone will be doing a dramatic reading coming up on the show of the recent tweets. The president was busy this morning.
Yes.
As Trey Gowdy kind of seems to, kick Trump to the curb and then kind of support something that Trump said about the Attorney General. Interesting developments this morning from Gowdy and Trump coming up. If you're one of the millions of Americans who suffer from muscle cramps in your legs or your feet, relief is finally in sight. TheraWorks Relief is a topical foam that's clinically proven to relieve muscle cramps fast. And with daily use, TheraWorks Relief can prevent muscle cramps before they even start. I recommend TheraWorks Relief to my family and friends, and the results speak for themselves. Now the word breakthrough gets tossed around easily these days, but TheraWorks Relief is the real deal. This is a life-changing product that, best of all, you don't even need a prescription for. TheraWorks Relief is my choice for preventing and relieving muscle cramps. Make it yours, too. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens pharmacies, or at TheraWorksRelief.com. Talk to your pharmacist about TheraWorks Relief and experience relief from muscle cramps for yourself. That's TheraWorks Relief for your muscle cramps. The President's Daily Tweets.
Representative Trey Gowdy said, "I don't think so. I think what the President is doing is expressing frustration that Attorney General Sessions should have shared these reasons for recusal before he took the job, not afterward. If I were president and I picked someone to be the country's chief law enforcement officer, and they told me later, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be able to participate in the most important case in the office, I would be frustrated too. And that's how I saw that. Senator Sessions, why didn't you tell me before I picked you? There are lots of really good lawyers in the country. He could have picked someone else. And I wish I did. I wish I did."
So the president was quoting Trey Gowdy there.
Yes, he was.
And he says, "I wish I did." At the end of it, after the quote, he says, I wish I did. I wish I did pick someone else. God, how do you feel if you're Jeff Sessions? Well, Trey Gowdy, who I'm not, all that thrilled with, because he seems to be downplaying the danger of having an informant in a political campaign that you don't alert to the fact that you're doing in this investigation surrounding the campaign. Okay, I have a problem with what Gowdy said on that score, but on this he is right. Trey Gowdy is right. There were innumerable lawyers, and I know a lot of them, who would have been phenomenal attorney generals. And instead, they went with Sessions, because Sessions was his first supporter, one of his most vociferous, stalwart supporters, never gave up, never gave in the darkest hours of the campaign when the Billy Bush tapes came out. You didn't see Jeff Sessions panicking. He's like, fight on. Then the Russia thing comes up, and he rushes to recuse himself. He had no reason to recuse himself. And this point was made on television last night that, look, the Justice Department guidelines themselves didn't indicate that he had to recuse himself. So why did he? And it's a frustration for this administration, and I know it is stuck in the craw of this president. But then it's another matter to be tweeting out, "I wish I did." I mean, if you're Jeff Sessions, how do you exist as the attorney general when your boss is telling the world he wish he never picked you? I mean, that's like a bad relationship, right, Raymond? I mean, that's a bad relationship. That's not a good one.
Well, and then to quote somebody hitting the attorney general, and then to say, I wish I did. I wish I did.
What? Joining us now is Saul Weisenberg, who's a deputy independent counsel of Whitewater investigation with Nelson Mullins now. Saul, well, so Trey Gowdy, even though he says he doesn't think there was any spy directed at Trump himself, is saying this morning that Jeff Sessions basically was an unwise appointment. And then the president basically concurs.
Well, I don't know whether you want me to hit first his statements about spies or informants or about Jeff Sessions.
Just start speaking, Saul. Just start speaking.
Okay. I have a lot of sympathy for Sessions.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on the process by which he recused himself, but I know he did talk to department lawyers who told him that he should. And keep in mind, he had already testified in front of the Senate and had already, I think, had to correct himself about how many times he met with the Russians. So I'm not at all sure that he didn't need to recuse himself. So I just don't think that criticism is necessarily fair, and I think the president is going to now if he ever talks to Mueller, have to answer questions about his effort to convince the Attorney General, to try to convince the Attorney General not to, to reverse himself on recusal.
Well, he apparently talked to Don McGahn about this, and I think what the president was getting at, Saul, was there was no Russia collusion. Jeff Sessions, because Kislyak stopped by his office, and it was such a non-thing that Jeff Sessions is one of the most honest men I know. He might have made a bad decision, in my view, on recusal, but he's a very honorable man. So the fact that he said, the fact that he's like, this guy stopped by, big deal. I mean, that doesn't mean he needed to recuse himself. He had nothing to do with Russia. He had nothing to do with Papadopoulos. He had nothing to do with Carter Page. This guy was nothing to do, and Sessions knew that, and the president knew that. That's why he's frustrated.
Well, but that's you say I have nothing to do with this. I had nothing to do with this, but conflict of interest has to do with not what you think,
appearance as well,
but what appearances and here is Sessions. He's already been blasted in his Senate confirmation hearing for not remembering all of his meetings with the Russians, and he's got career professionals at DOJ. He's wanted to be Attorney General all of his life, and they're saying this is the right thing for you to do. And so I think he tried to do the right thing. Now, look, there are reasons for conservative rage on this issue, on the broader issue of how a special counsel came to be. You have all these instances in the Obama administration where, under the regulation, there should have undoubtedly been a special counsel. There should have been a special counsel for Hillary Clinton, both the email and the Clinton Foundation. There should have been a special counsel for Fast and Furious. There should have been a special counsel for the IRS investigation. But guess what? They never Holder and then Lynch never appointed one or never suggested appointing one. That's what the president means when he says, I appreciated Eric Holder, he protected the president. There wasn't a peep about this from the press, and unfortunately there wasn't enough of an outcry from Republicans in Congress about this, the failure to appoint a special counsel. Then President Trump comes in, and basically in a matter of weeks, partly because of the engineering of James Comey, who's admitted that he wanted to get a special counsel appointed, and partly because of the president's own missteps, you got a special counsel. And it's like they maneuvered the outgoing administration to put him in a situation, or to put people in a situation where it was inevitable that there would be a special counsel. We don't know. One of the many things we don't know is what exactly motivated Rod Rosenstein to feel like he had to appoint a special counsel. We don't know exactly what he was looking at. Maybe someday we will know.
Well, I think that was another bad appointment. I mean, again, if your first instinct, when you have to go up to Capitol Hill and brief them on the status of the Russia investigation, and your first instinct is to appoint a special counsel, I think he wet himself up there. He did not want to be on the hot seat on this, and so he rushes to appoint a special counsel, and with everything that entailed. And he's the one who wrote the letter about firing Comey, and he wrote he gave the president a green light on that too. So I'm not a big booster, to say the least, of Rod Rosenstein being the person that Sessions should have picked as Attorney General. If you're the kind of person like Sessions who's going to recuse yourself in one of the most important investigations facing the administration, which could change the course of history, then you better pick a number two who's going to be rock solid. And I don't think Rod Rosenstein is rock solid. And I know a lot of people from his class as U.S. attorneys who think he's, he wasn't even in the top 10% of people who should have been selected out of that class. Go ahead.
Well, obviously he's an old friend of mine, but I also disagree. I think he was by and large, an outstanding U.S. attorney, and I think he had a key role in kind of derailing the Lauren Stevens prosecution. She ended up getting acquitted by the judge in the middle of the trial. That was brought by the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney's Office in Rod's district, and he refused to sign the indictment. I think he's an honorable fellow, and I think remember, when he first went to the Senate, he was very firm in his confirmation hearing that he didn't agree to appoint a special counsel, and he would have to wait and see. And it was only after the unfortunate series of events having to do with the firing of Comey, where basically, yes, he wrote a memo, but then the president made it seem like, oh, the only reason I'm firing this guy is because of this memo I just got from Rod Rosenstein. And we all know that's not accurate. And then he looked at something. So will it turn out that he basically panicked because he was getting panned for his role in firing Comey? Or did he also look at something and see something and say something like having to do with, well, Jeff Sessions is under investigation in this? And did he say, how can we look at this? How can the Department of Justice investigate this if the Attorney General has been designated a subject? We just don't know. And I have sympathy for him because he was put in the situation in part because of the president's inability to follow even the most basic norms of how you deal with the Department of Justice. Now, I think that Rod and Christopher Wray, I've criticized them very harshly for their redactions with various
documents. Document requests.
Of documents, and it's very clear that many of these redactions, and I'm talking about the Strzok page text, for example, but others as well, having to do with Sally Yates, were only redacted to keep the FBI and DOJ from embarrassment, and I think that's very wrong.
The good document, the slow walking the documents until Congress threatens you with contempt of Congress, you withhold the documents. I mean, I get that's wrong. I get the fact that everyone wants to be, protect their power base and protect their, independence, but you do have oversight responsibilities. One thing that sticks in my craw, though, about the Deputy Attorney General is the fact that he did sign off on one of the extensions of the FISA warrants, correct? And those warrants did not reveal that the Fusion GPS funded dossier was funded by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. That was not revealed in that FISA application to the FISA court. And Rod signed off on that. I think that's a problem.
And it should have been revealed. I don't know if he knew that when he signed off. I assume he knew that. And as we've talked about before, every time you sign off on a new one, there has to have been something that's been discovered in the intervening period that justifies keeping that surveillance going. But absolutely, it should have been revealed from the very beginning that it was DNC funded and Hillary Clinton campaign funded, and Gowdy has been very strong on that. And getting back to Gowdy for a minute, I mean, I think Gowdy's been an honest broker on this. He went and he was shown some stuff the other day, along with the Gang of Eight, I guess, and he's now come out and said there was not a spy embedded in the campaign. But I think it's important not to get bogged down in nomenclature here. There was a confidential human source. They used to call that a confidential informant. There was a confidential human source inserted into the campaign, not embedded in domestically, but somebody who approached three people involved in the campaign and actively tried to get and did get Papadopoulos over to Europe by giving him a grant to attend a conference, apparently dangled the possibility of emails in front of them.
It looks like entrapment. To me, it looks like entrapment. You guys are all okaying this. If this happened in the Clinton campaign...
I'm not okaying it at all.
People would go crazy with this. They would go crazy.
I agree, and I've said that. No, I'm saying, look, don't get caught up in whether it's a spy
or an informant, or a mole. I said the same thing.
It's a serious thing.
Yep.
Okay, great. We now know, if they've told Gowdy the truth, we now know there wasn't somebody working in campaign headquarters domestically. Good. I'm glad to hear that. But this is... don't act like this is, if you're Gowdy, that this is normal procedure. It is not. Andrew McCarthy has made that clear, and I agree with him. To do something like this, before you do something like this, you better have something serious and rock solid. And so to say, well, there were people affiliated with the Trump campaign who had these ties with Russia. Well, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Carter Page, who the DOJ had already determined in a previous investigation had been approached by the Russians, but had not played ball with them, and in fact had played ball with DOJ, and that the Russians considered him an idiot, by the way.
Right.
And I don't mean to embarrass him. That's just what they considered him to be, and unimportant.
Yeah,
so,
it's just like with starting the special counsel in the first place. You have to have an underlying sense of a crime. You have to have a predicate. and with this investigation with the informant, when a political season especially, you also need that serious underlying conduct, and I think it has to be a clear sense that there's criminality here. Otherwise it just smells bad to most people. Maybe it's just a practical understanding I have about this, but it just doesn't look good. The Hillary people would be going nuts if this happened to them. Nuts. And if there was a Republican administration doing it. Saul, always great to have your insight. 855-40-LAURA. More on Roseanne and the fallout coming up. All right, let's go to Laura in Connecticut on line 5. Laura.
Yes, good. Regarding the Roseanne recent outburst, she is a disgrace to this country. Everyone has freedom of speech, but you have a moral obligation to control that. And you need to be responsible for what you say. And she's not.
Well, I would agree with that. I also think it means that this should apply across the board to other entertainers who say hideous things, condemning and deriding entire groups of people. It doesn't happen, unfortunately, but of course words have consequences. But, look, Michael Richards used the N-word. He was never heard from again. He was no conservative. So maybe Howie Kurtz is right. It's a third rail. You can't touch it.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Welcome to the Dennis Miller Option. I remember Seagal came in some Alan Carr caftan or something, sat down with a Iroquois braid. I thought this was going to be a long week. Dana Carvey, ladies and gentlemen.
Why don't you yell out for Steve out there? See if you can get him to come in like you're the real deal.
Oh, listen, and Gord, Arnold is stronger than you. Your buttocks are like marshmallows compared to Arnold.
It was like the horse broke its leg in the back straight away, put the tent up and put me down. It was so awkward.
Remember to listen to new episodes of the Dennis Miller Option every Wednesday right here on Podcast One.
Do it.
You can follow Dennis on Twitter at DennisDMZ, Instagram at Dennis Miller, and on Facebook he's at Real Dennis Miller.
And by the way, I hide nothing here with the Dennis Miller podcast.
What kind of mind thinks of this?
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. Thousands of residents of North Carolina are running for their lives after heavy rain from the big storm Alberto triggered landslides at a dam that's in danger of breaking. Missouri Governor Eric Greitens is resigning amid investigations about an extramarital affair and questions about campaign financing.
I know, and people of good faith know, that I am not perfect. But I have not broken any laws nor committed any offense worthy of this treatment.
Roseanne Barr is apologizing to those who lost their jobs now that her TV show's been canceled after she tweeted a racist comment about an advisor to former President Obama, Valerie Jarrett.
First of all, I think we have to turn it into a teaching moment. I'm fine.
That's Valerie Jarrett speaking there. Wall Street expected to open higher after a tough day yesterday. The Dow lost 391 points to close at 24,361. I'm Rita Foley.